So imagine you're trying to day trade on the stock market, right? But you are only allowed to use a newspaper from like 2 weeks ago to make your decisions.
You'd be completely wiped out.
Oh, absolutely. You'd lose your shirt. Because you have no live ticker, no earnings reports, just, these outdated rumors. You're operating in a market with just massive information asymmetry.
Which is really just an economist's polite way of saying the person selling to you knows absolutely everything and you know absolutely nothing.
Right.
It's a setup where the consumer is basically guaranteed to lose.
And that exact dynamic is what we're digging into for you today. Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of sources in front of us.
Yeah, we're pulling from some real-time market data aggregated by a platform called DamLive.
Which stands for DamLive Active Menus, right?
Exactly.
Sure.
And we're looking at that alongside some historical archives on Dutch drug policy, plus some really recent sociological research on the 2026 Amsterdam cannabis scene.
So the mission today for us is to figure out how taking this legacy, word-of-mouth gray market and suddenly just blasting it with real-time data, how that completely rewires the economics for both the businesses and the people visiting them.
It's a phenomenal case study, honestly. I mean, for decades, the Amsterdam coffee shop scene has been this almost mythological environment.
Oh, yeah. People just relied on, outdated forum posts from 10 years ago.
Or they just wandered right out of the central train station and literally hoped for the best.
I've read some of those old travel blogs. It is a complete mess. You've got people recommending spots that closed back in 2019.
Right, or places that changed ownership and went completely downhill.
Which naturally birthed the whole tourist trap business model, didn't it?
It did. And if you think about the underlying mechanics of a tourist trap in any city, I mean, whether it's selling gelato in Rome or cannabis in Amsterdam, it relies on two specific things: a high volume of foot traffic and zero expectation of repeat business.
Right, because if a shop owner knows you're flying back to Ohio on Tuesday and never coming back,
they have absolutely no economic incentive to offer you a fair price or a high-quality product.
They just need, a flashy neon sign to get you through the door.
Yes. They bank on the fact that the cost of discovery for you is too high.
Meaning the time and energy it takes to physically walk to 5 different shops to compare menus.
Exactly. You're tired, you're a tourist, so you just settle for whatever is right in front of you.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at the data we have from DamLive, it seems like their entire mission is to basically destroy that specific business model.
Oh, without a doubt.
I'm looking at their feature list right now, and there is literally a toggle setting for the user called Tourist Mode, off XXX Amsterdam only.
It's very direct.
That is so aggressive. I love it. But how does an app actually enforce that in reality?
By fundamentally lowering that cost of discovery we just talked about down to zero. The platform acts as a real-time price index and a strain explorer. Our notes show they are actively tracking live menu updates from over 90 licensed Dutch coffee shops.
Right. I saw the timestamps on this thing. It shows Kadinsky updating their menu on a Tuesday, and then the Plug Westerdock dropping new inventory an hour later.
You can see exactly what's fresh at places like Baloo or Seventh Heaven.
But does seeing a menu really stop someone from getting ripped off? I mean, a menu is just a menu.
It does when you combine it with aggregate data. Think about it. If you're standing outside some flashy shop near the central station and you pull up the platform, you aren't just seeing their prices.
You're just seeing the whole picture.
Right. You're seeing customer ratings, honest reviews, verified THC content, specific CBD products, and you can instantly cross-reference their prices with a quiet neighborhood spot just 2 streets over.
Wow. So suddenly the shop owner can't rely on your ignorance anymore.
Exactly. The power dynamic completely shifts.
That is a massive shift. If I'm a tourist, I don't have to walk blindly into a bad deal. But let's look at this from the other side. If I'm an honest, local shop owner, say, a place like Baloo on Halvmenstieg,
which the sources highlight for having very consistent quality.
Right. Does this platform actually help me? Or is it just forcing me into this brutal race to the bottom on pricing?
It actually does the exact opposite of a race to the bottom. It rewards quality with visibility.
How so?
Well, before real-time data, a great neighborhood shop simply couldn't compete with the massive marketing budget of a huge tourist trap chain.
Right. They couldn't afford the prime real estate.
Exactly. But now, their high ratings and their fair prices act as their marketing. The platform organically routes the consumer right to the honest business.
So it forces the whole ecosystem to elevate its standards.
Because accountability is suddenly public. You can't hide bad product anymore.
making it essentially a mandatory tool if you actually want to survive in that market today. Which honestly brings me to the actual menus. Because the economics of the 2026 market, I am looking at these price tiers and I have a lot of questions.
The gratification is definitely stark, to say the least.
Stark is an understatement. So let me walk you through what the data shows for the listeners. At the entry level, you have the budget option, which locals call Groos.
Right.
From what I understand, this is essentially the shake, the small bits and pieces at the bottom of the jar. That runs about 6 to 8 euros per gram.
A very standard utilitarian price point. It gets the job done.
Then you step up to your standard local Dutch strains. Those are sitting right between 12 and 16 euros a gram. Totally reasonable.
Very typical for the European market.
But then, and this is where I get lost, there is this massive cliff face of a price leap for imported top-shelf Cali strains. The data shows these going for 25 to 35 euros per gram.
Yeah, which is roughly 85 to 120 euros for an eighth of an ounce.
It is a staggering premium. So I'm going to call a timeout here and push back on this. Because if a standard, locally grown, high-quality gram is 12 euros, why on earth would anyone, tourist or local, pay up to 120 euros for a tiny bag of Cali weed?
It sounds absurd at first glance.
I mean, I don't care how cool the packaging is. Is this just pure marketing hype, or is there an actual biological reason someone drops that kind of cash?
It's really easy to dismiss it as hype, but the data and the underlying biology actually tells a much more nuanced story.
Okay, educate me.
To understand the price tag, we have to look at what DamLive's Strain Explorer actually tracks. It isn't just listing names on a board. It's tracking genetic lineage and something called terpene profiles.
Okay, break that down for me. What is a terpene and why is it costing me 100 euros?
Terpenes are the organic compounds in the plant that dictate its smell and taste. So if a strain smells like lemon or pine or, diesel fuel, that's the terpenes. But more importantly, modern cannabis science has shown that terpenes biologically interact with cannabinoids, like THC, in what's called the entourage effect.
The entourage effect, okay.
They act almost like a steering wheel for the high. They literally determine whether a strain makes you feel energized and focused or completely locked to your couch.
So it isn't just about the sheer percentage of THC anymore.
Not at all. And this is where the California imports command their massive premium. Those brands have spent years and millions of dollars breeding highly stabilized designer genetics with incredibly rare and specific terpene profiles.
Oh, so it's very much like the wine industry.
That's the perfect analogy. You can buy a local table wine that gets the job done for 15 euros, or you can pay 200 euros for a French Bordeaux because of the terroir, the specific grape genetics, and the master cultivation techniques.
That makes a lot of sense. The sources specifically spotlight a daily pick on the platform called RS11.
RS11.
Yeah, it says it's a cross between pink guava and sunset sherbet, and the notes actually call it the backbone of the modern hype strain era.
Exactly. It's the genetic foundation for crosses like Mega Z. And people will pay a premium to experience the precise, curated effect of those specific genetics.
But the beauty of having this database is that you don't actually have to pay that premium if you don't want to.
Precisely. You have options.
Right. I noticed the platform breaks the categories down so anyone can find what they need. It categorizes the flower into sativas and indicas. And for you listening who might be a bit fuzzy on the difference from what the research says, sativas are typically your taller plants that provide a more uplifting, cerebral, daytime effect.
Right. Things like your classic super silver haze.
Exactly. And then indicas are the shorter, bushier plants that give you that heavy, relaxed evening feeling.
And beyond just the flower, the platform is tracking different extraction methods too. They list old school hash, but also modern rosin concentrates.
I actually saw rosin mentioned a lot in the data. How is that different from the old school blocks of hash you see in those 90s movies?
Well, it really comes down to the mechanism of extraction.
Okay.
Traditional hash is usually made by physically sifting the plant material to collect the resin glands and then often pressing it into a block.
Right, it's very manual.
But rosin is a much newer, cleaner technique. It uses pure heat and immense pressure to literally squeeze the essential oils right out of the flower.
Wait, so no chemical?
No chemical solvents are used at all. It is incredibly potent, preserves the terpenes perfectly, and is notoriously difficult to yield in high quantities.
Which again explains why certain shops charge a premium for it.
Exactly. So if you're a connoisseur looking for solventless rosin, use the app to find exactly who has it in stock today.
But if you just want like a standard 12 euro sativa to enjoy while walking along the canals, you can use the database to find a quiet neighborhood shop with a great price to quality ratio.
Right, completely bypassing the massive crowded tourist hubs like Family First or Greenhouse or Barney's.
It allows the consumer to just arbitrage the market based on their own specific budget and desires. But, and this is a big but all of this economic empowerment is completely useless if you fundamentally misunderstand the legal environment you're stepping into.
Oh, absolutely.
We really have to talk about this because the legal framework in Amsterdam is one of the most misunderstood systems on the planet. I think the average person assumes weed is just 100% legal in the Netherlands.
That is the biggest misconception by far. It is not fully legal.
It's not.
No, it operates under a very specific framework called the Gedoogdbeleid, which roughly translates to a tolerance policy. And it creates this fascinating economic paradox that sociologists often refer to as the backdoor problem.
The backdoor problem. Okay, walk me through how that actually works in practice.
So, under the tolerance policy, a licensed coffee shop is permitted to sell small quantities of cannabis to a consumer out of the front door.
Okay, making sense so far.
The police will not arrest the shop owner for selling it, and they will not arrest you for buying it.
Right.
However, the cultivation, mass transport, and wholesale purchasing of that cannabis, basically how it gets into the back door of the shop, remains entirely illegal and criminalized.
Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly. It is completely fine for the shop to sell it to me, but it is illegal for the shop to actually acquire the inventory they are selling to me.
That is the paradox of the Gedoogdbeleid. It forces coffee shop owners to operate in an incredibly stressful, legally ambiguous gray zone when sourcing their products.
That is wild.
They are essentially running legitimate, tax-paying storefronts that have to be supplied by clandestine logistics.
It really explains why a platform like DamLive is so crucial for these businesses. They are already operating under this immense logistical pressure. The last thing they need is to be undercut by some shady tourist trap selling subpar products down the street.
Precisely. And because of this really delicate legal balance, the rules for the consumer inside these shops are incredibly rigid.
Right. They can't afford to mess around.
The tolerance policy can be revoked for a shop if they break the rules, so they enforce them strictly.
The sources make that very clear. First of all, the 18-plus age limit. You need a physical government-issued ID, like a passport or an EU identity card.
The driver's license from Ohio isn't going to cut it, usually.
And it doesn't matter if you have gray hair and look 50 years old. If you don't have the physical card on you, you are not getting through the door.
And then there are the purchasing limits, which max out at 5 grams per person per day.
But the good news for anyone planning a trip is that the long-rumored weed pass, the weed pass, is not a thing in Amsterdam.
Thankfully, no.
Because for years, there were articles saying Amsterdam was going to ban all tourists from buying cannabis and restrict it only to local residents. But according to the 2026 data, that is absolutely not in effect in the city.
No. As a visitor, you are still welcome to participate, but you have to play by their very specific house rules.
Which brings us to the rule that I think confuses international visitors the most. The tobacco ban.
Oh, yeah. People struggle with this one.
This one is just so counterintuitive. You are telling me I can walk into a designated smoking room, light up a pure cannabis joint, but the second I pull out a regular Marlboro cigarette, I get kicked out.
You will be asked to leave immediately.
Why? How does that make any sense?
It seems absurd until you look at the mechanisms of European labor law. The ban on indoor tobacco smoking isn't actually a cannabis regulation. It's a workplace health and safety regulation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The European Union instituted strict bans on indoor tobacco smoking to protect employees from secondhand smoke. Because cannabis falls under that weird tolerance gray area and isn't classified exactly the same way as commercial tobacco in that specific labor law context, it gets an exemption.
But the staff still have a legal right to a tobacco-free workplace.
Exactly.
So it's literally an intersection of EU labor rights and Dutch drug policy. That is fascinating. But what do you do if you are, say, a European who traditionally rolls their joints with tobacco? Because a lot of people do that.
The shops provide a workaround. Most places will have a bowl of a free, non-tobacco herbal mix sitting right on the tables. You're required to use that instead if you want to dilute your cannabis.
This highlights something I find really interesting about the cultural side of things. In North America, the legal dispensary model is very clinical.
Very much so.
It's essentially a pharmacy trip. You walk into a brightly lit, sterile room, you point at an iPad, a person behind glass hands you a sealed, child-proof bag, and you immediately leave to go consume it in private. But Amsterdam is built entirely on the pub model.
Yes, the consumption lounge is integral to the culture there. You are meant to stay, order a coffee, and actually socialize.
And because it's a social space, the atmosphere of the room matters just as much as the quality of the menu. I mean, if you are a first-timer, you probably don't want to accidentally walk into a place that feels like a heavy underground techno bunker.
Right. Which is another area where a data aggregator like DamLive proves its worth beyond just crunching numbers. It acts as an interactive cultural guide. The platform actually curates recommendations based on the specific vibe a user is seeking.
Oh, I did see that. I was looking at their beginner guides. They specifically point entry-level consumers to places like Bore Youngins, which the platform notes has a very professional, almost boutique hotel-like staff.
Yeah, they wear white coats, they're very polite, and they will patiently walk you through the menu.
Right. Or a place like Cybery, which is tagged for having a much more relaxed, easygoing atmosphere. And if you are someone who doesn't want to smoke anything at all, the platform routes you to Paradox, which is historically renowned for having excellent, properly dosed edibles.
And by offering those tailored recommendations, the platform is doing something very important. It is actively mitigating bad experiences.
Keeping people safe.
Exactly. It prevents the novice from over-consuming in a hostile environment, which ultimately protects the reputation of the entire city's cannabis culture.
It's treating the user like a guest, not just a walking wallet. And I noticed they also have a deep respect for the history of this scene. The sources show DamLive explicitly linking out to historical archives, specifically a community project called the Coffeeshop Menus Archive.
That is such a brilliant inclusion. That archive has been crowdsourcing physical photographs of coffee shop menus for decades.
Wow.
By integrating that historical context, DamLive is acknowledging that, they didn't invent this culture. They were just providing the modern infrastructure to help it survive.
They are essentially turning the lights on in a room that has been dimly lit for 40 years. So to bring all of this together for you listening, what we are looking at is so much more than just a menu app.
Oh, it's a complete ecosystem, man.
Right. Whether you are planning a trip to the Netherlands or you are just fascinated by market economics, DamLive is proving to be an absolutely essential tool. It takes a legacy market that was notoriously opaque, heavily regulated, and frankly, often predatory toward tourists.
And it introduces total transparency. It solves the information asymmetry problem we talked about at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It gives the honest shop owners a platform to shine without needing a massive advertising budget. And it gives the consumer the power of informed consent.
It proves that the ultimate travel companion in the modern era isn't a guidebook. It's clean, accessible data. It turns what used to be a complete gamble into a highly curated, safe experience.
Which leaves us with a really compelling, broader question to think about.
Yeah, you're honest.
If something as simple as a real-time data aggregator can completely legitimize, organize, and elevate a legally ambiguous gray market in Amsterdam, what other chaotic, informal economies around the world could be completely transformed overnight just by putting the data directly into the hands of the consumer?